Resident Evil is a series that has had its fair share of main villains throughout the series, such as the T-002 Tyrant from the very first game, or the Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, or even scientist types like William Birkin from Resident Evil 2 or Alexa Ashford from Code Veronica. We've had all these different type of villains throughout the series. However, we haven't had a reoccurring type of villain since Albert Wesker. He was the only one to really show up behind the scenes in multiple games and then meet his end in Resident Evil 5. And we haven't really had anything like that since. And I'm kind of wondering, is it time for Resident Evil to bring back another villain like that? Because I think it would be interesting. It's obviously not something that we have to have, you know. Resident Evil is not a series that has to have that type of villain that's pretty much always there behind the scenes and stuff. It can do without it, but it would be kind of cool to see something like that be brought back to the series, because Wesker was always really interesting, how he was doing his thing behind the scenes, manipulating things and trying to formulate stuff for his Ouroboros project that he was getting ready for and everything, and that was really cool. And so to have something like that again, I would be really interested in seeing it happen. And I always felt like after Wesker died, there were plenty of main villain types that had the potential to be the next reoccurring type of villain, like Simmons from Resident Evil 6. I think he would have been an interesting candidate because he had the whole family organization and everything, and so it would have been kind of cool to see where that could have gone in the future, but nothing came from it. He ends up getting killed in Resident Evil 6, and we've heard nothing about the family since then. And then even Carla in Resident Evil 6 would have also been an interesting candidate because she had Neo Umbrella. So she had that organization under her control, but she also gets killed in Resident Evil 6, and Neo Umbrella collapses. So we get nothing really going from that angle either. There is, of course, Alex Wesker, who, as we all know, successfully transferred her consciousness into the mind of Natalia, and so she still technically exists, and so she could be that next reoccurring type of villain. The only issue is that we don't really know if Capcom's ever going to bring up that plot line again. They might just sweep it under the rug and never mention it again, and I'm hoping that won't be the case. I would love for Alex Wesker to be that next reoccurring villain, because she would really fit that profile perfectly. I mean, she is a Wesker after all, and we do know that she is still out there. So she checks all the boxes. It's just a matter of, will Capcom be willing to actually acknowledge that plot line, or have they already completely moved past it and we're never going to see anything come from it? That's really the big question mark there. But she does by far have the most potential to be that next reoccurring villain for sure. Now, another possibility could be that Capcom decides to bring back Albert Wesker to once again be the reoccurring villain of the franchise. Now, me personally, I hope this does not become the case, as I really want to see a new villain take the mantle of being the next reoccurring type of villain. And so, for me personally, I just don't want to see Wesker show back up again. The only reason I would want to see Wesker return is so that Jill could have a shot at taking him down alongside Chris. But you don't really need Wesker to show up in a brand new game for that to take place. You could just have that happen in a Resident Evil 5 remake, where at the end of the game, Jill also gets an RPG alongside Chris and Sheva to take down Wesker once and for all. And so you could just do that right there instead of having him show up in a new game and returning from the dead. So that's how I would want to see things go down instead. Another thing that could be interesting if they did show Albert Wesker returning is that we could have an interaction between him and his son Jake. So something like that could also be cool, but I would still prefer someone new taking the mantle of being the next reoccurring villain personally. But what would you prefer? Would you prefer Albert Wesker show up and take that role again? Or would you like to see someone new become the next reoccurring type of villain? Let me know. But Capcom has plenty of options that they could go with. They could go with having Alex Wesker be the next reoccurring type of villain. They could bring back Albert Wesker, or they could introduce a completely new villain that we have yet to see. Maybe the leader of the Connections or whoever it is that's behind the corruption of the BSAA. A number of people could show up that we've never seen that could be that next reoccurring type of villain. So there's several options that Capcom could go with, or it could just be that we never have a reoccurring type of villain ever again. Maybe Wesker will be the only one that's really like that, and that's it. All the other villains will just be one and done villains specific to that game right there, and that's it. And if that's the case, I would be okay with that. I don't have to have a reoccurring villain in Resident Evil. It's not a must, but I do think it would be kind of cool to see that once again. And if they do it, I think it'd be interesting. But what are your thoughts? Do you want to see another reoccurring type of villain once again? And if they do have that show up again, who do you want it to be? Do you want it to be Alex? Do you want it to be Albert? Someone brand new we've never seen? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video here, and I will see you all on the next one. See you then.